Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is a very long title, but we've gotten used to that because this franchise planted a flag in calling all of them something of the Planet of the Apes. And because of that, we are still in these massive titles. I can't wait to see how long this looks on YouTube. It's going to be great. The film is directed by Wes Ball, the man behind the Maze Runner trilogy, and it's set many years after the reign of Caesar, where a young ape goes on a journey that will lead him to question everything he's been taught about the past and make choices that will define a future for apes and humans alike. I very much liked the previous trilogy of Apes movies. The last two, especially directed by Matt Reeves, were phenomenal. The first one, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, was a massive surprise. I remember most people went into that movie thinking, I don't really know about apes and what's that all about? Like, we're going to do this ape thing again? Tim Burton's one was a movie that happened, and so a lot of people kind of went in thinking, I don't know. But it was a massive surprise. The trilogy is fantastic. I love those movies. When it comes to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I think people right now are kind of feeling the same way. Do we really need to do this? Is this a good idea? I don't know. I certainly felt that way going in, but I am so relieved to report that this is a very, very good movie. I don't know if it's better than Matt Reeves' films. I would have to see this one a second time. I am leaning towards no. I do think I like it more than Rise, though, and that could vary for some people. I really like Wes Ball's style. He has a very fast and gritty way of shooting action. His Maze Runner films felt that way, and this one does as well. In an interview, he spoke that although actors were definitely wearing cameras on their faces and mocap suits and dots everywhere, that they were trying to shoot as many of these sequences in real locations as possible, and you can feel that in the movie. Despite the no doubt abundant use of computer-generated imagery, this is a really beautiful looking movie, especially if you like abandoned stuff, of which I'm a massive fan. I love abandoned buildings, boats that are in rivers that have been sitting there for a long time. I'm very fascinated by that. The Last of Us has a lot of that kind of imagery, and this movie has abandoned cities with vines growing up all of the buildings, boats sitting on beaches for so long they're completely rusted out. While it doesn't feel quite as beautifully composed as those last two Matt Reeves films, this is still a gorgeous looking movie with fantastic action sequences. And it does an exceptional job at immediately endearing us to Noah, this new ape character that we're going to follow throughout this whole movie, played really well by Owen Teague. The film tells us at the beginning that the movie is set many generations after what went down in the previous trilogy. And so it acknowledges them, but it doesn't exactly feel the need to continue that story. This is really good for this movie because you don't have to tell that story anymore. That story's finished. It's good that they have chosen to acknowledge it, but not have like a fourth film that's randomly about that again. It's not necessary. The thing they took from that trilogy that I absolutely loved and I thought was so smart was how might the apes in the future view Caesar and his teachings? Because if you were to look at Caesar the way that we nowadays have all of our various things that we might worship or appreciate, give stock to, whatever. Everybody has somebody they're probably looking up to, whether it's from the Bible or some other text. What if Caesar was like that for these apes? And what if his teachings got diluted and transformed into something else that might not have been his intentions? And that's where the villains of this movie come into play. And I think that's absolutely a brilliant idea. When you take someone like Caesar, who obviously had such a massive impact on the apes of this world, and then you remove everyone from the planet who was alive and knew him, what would that look like? It's that old story of if you're sitting in a circle and one person tells a story and whispers it into someone else's ear and you go all the way around the room, how different is that story once it gets back to you? This is a really great way of acknowledging those movies and saying, yes, this is a sequel, but not having to worry about necessarily continuing a story that didn't need to be continued. When it comes to Noah, I think a lot of people can relate to what his initial struggle is, which is trying to impress his parents. That's where the film starts. That's where we meet him. He's trying to do this thing that's very important to his clan. But once the movie changes into a revenge film, I thought it picked up immensely. There is a section of the movie in which you're learning about how humans exist now and how apes exist and how they view each other and how things have changed. That did feel, I won't say slow. Slow is the wrong word, because looking back on the movie, it really does feel like every scene had to be there for the story to work. It just feels like there were certain scenes that needed a little more momentum. But I'm honestly getting into nitpicky stuff because there wasn't a scene in the movie that I wasn't staring at the screen entertained in some way. The actors are absolutely phenomenal. Kevin Durand as Proximus Caesar, the most insane name of all time. He is so good in the film. He's very intimidating even though his presence in the movie isn't felt for a while. The length of this movie is fairly daunting. It's 2 hours and 25 minutes, of course, that's with credits. But without a doubt, my favorite character in the movie was Rocca, played by Peter Macon. This character's out there trying to educate people on what Caesar's legacy was, what he was trying to teach. But he's also just really, really funny. He has some great moments in the movie, and one of the funniest aspects of this film is the exploration of how apes talk about humans. Because not only does it make perfect sense that highly intelligent apes who can speak might eventually think things about humans who are dwindling in the population, and we're nearing that 1968 Planet of the Apes kind of version of this now, but it's also very funny, all of the ways that they talk about us, because it kind of makes sense. Even though they're speaking about humans in a very insulting way, you can't help but be like, they're not wrong. While this might not be quite as thought-provoking as some of the best Apes movies, I think that it handles relationships between characters beautifully. There is some very hard choices that characters are forced to make. The mirror is also turned on us as well as audience members, and we're asked to think about how we might be contributing to things in a negative way. But it's also just a really damn entertaining movie. I had a great time with it, and it is by no means a disaster or a disappointment for me. I thought it was really, really good. And this is one of those few franchises right now that is going fairly strong. And this was a film that had a lot on its shoulders, because although it does acknowledge those three films, people are going to definitely compare it to them. I mean, I already have in the past few minutes. But it is trying to do its own thing. And at the end of this movie, I was excited to watch more films with these characters. So guys, thank you so much as always for watching. I'm curious to know what you thought of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes when you get a chance to see it. As always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.